This Sunday evening. We're doing Sunday at Mike's every Sunday, 11 p.m. Central European Time. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I always start out by saying we make a couple adjustments here of my lights. Yeah, it's a little brighter. That'll work. And say hello. Thank you so much for your time. Time's a valuable thing. And for you to spend a little bit of yours with me is greatly appreciated. We have done a time zone change here. Previously, this was 10 p.m. Now it is now 11 p.m. Central European time. So a little bit of a time switch over the weekend. I hope you guys get used to it. Hello, Scott. Hello, Mr. Watson. How are you guys doing? My favorite folks here, as always. I appreciate it. Just made some lemonade. Not exactly the drink that you should be having this time of night, but I felt like lemonade. It's been stormy here. As a matter of fact, I got up early and I did some gardening. I had a tree that I had to transplant. And boy, I'm glad I got that done because it has just been stormy here in Amsterdam. I hope the weather is better for you guys, wherever this finds you, morning, afternoon, or evening. Who else we got here? Cat's Music Journey. Welcome, sir. How you doing? Well, out to you as well. So, it's been some interesting days. I got a call from Fern, as I told you, that my guitar was ready. So I want to share that with you tonight. Before we get into that, where we wait for more people to join into the live stream, um, couple of things. One thing that's really blowing my mind, and I guess this kind of ties in with tonight's subject, is in researching tonight's subject. Actually, it's a subject I've been researching for years now, but getting a little bit more into it to write the script tonight. It's amazing to me that in this day and age, that we still use terms like beginner's guitar, budget guitar, things of that nature. Because with the advent of the modern CNC machines, these machines that they computer controlled cutouts of what you're making. So each one is exactly the same as the last. The only differential is the wood. But with the advent of that, the perfection of that craft, and also just lived having lived through the 70s and the 80s, anyone, I'll start out tonight by saying, any one of the guitars today, with a few exceptions, that are labeled so-called budget guitars, particularly the one that the brand I'm going to talk about tonight, Squire. Because as you know, it turns out for some reason I own now not one but two Squire Strats, both well known for different reasons. We'll get into this one tonight, but if I had one of these guitars back when I was younger, let me tell you, seriously, I had been in pure heaven, and quite frankly, any studio musician would have been more than happy with this. I always tell the famous story of how Skunk Baxter went to the Guitar Center in Hollywood, went through, they used to have a bin of guitars, 25 bucks, and you could take whatever was in the bin. And he just pulled one out, strummed a few chords on it, said, "This is fine," and recorded a Grammy Award winning album with that guitar. So if he had what people are calling budget guitars, jet guitars, Squire guitars, um, old G&L before they closed up, things of that nature, Epiphones. If he had that, trust me, that would have been one of his main guitars that he would have done other gigs with. It's just like that. So I want to put things in place tonight. I want to start out from there. Hans, Mr. Muter, how you doing? Welcome, sir. Good evening to you. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in like this. It's It's always great to be here. So, tonight I want to talk about something a little different, guys. Not the guitar market, not the vintage market. I want to talk about the joy of restoring a guitar. Something that is near and dear, close to my heart, because I really do enjoy um, the process of guitar restoration. I love going down to Fern Shop. That's the reason I mentioned it. I went down there and we spoke for quite a while about a lot of different subjects. Most of it was around the restoration of guitars. And I have to say that I'd like to spend a minute tonight talking about that subject, if you don't mind. I think that it's something that a lot of people, whether you're a beginning guitar player or a seasoned guitar player like myself, musician, that it's something that's worth looking into. It's worth taking a look at and thinking about. Now, I bought on auction. I want to go through a process with you guys. And this is a process that I think everybody should be taking when they're either modding a guitar or restoring a guitar. It's the first thing that you should think about, in my opinion. Your mileage may vary. First thing that I take a look at is how much would it cost to replace this guitar brand new or secondhand, but completed and already done. Now, uh, the cost. We're going to talk about Squire Affinity tonight. So, the cost of a brand new Squire Affinity. Hey, Russia 05B, welcome to you too. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have you here from all the way from Russia. That's fantastic. Awesome, dude. Awesome. Scott says, depends if the part that makes the guitar cheap can be replaced. Yeah, we'll get into that too. I'm really going to get into that because that is a point, a good point. Um, and it really is something that I thought about in terms of what would be the replacement cost. So, as Scott was just saying, the replacement cost should always be the first thing that you should be thinking. Now, a Squire Affinity right now in the EU zone will run you somewhere between 259 to 289 euros new. New. So, and 3 years ago, when I was looking for one, that's what I did. I look, and I don't think the prices changed that much. Maybe an extra $20, 30 euros, something like that, but not that much different from what it was 3 years ago. And I located one, an American a model in the state that was from the states that was on auction, Alpine White, and for $80 shipped, 80 euros shipped, 88 euros shipped, exactly. And I won the auction on it, and I had it shipped over. Now, another thing that I always stress is research. And one of the things when I was looking into getting an Esquire Affinity, because I was interested at the time, but I wanted to do some things with it. It was definitely a mod project in mind from the beginning. Next thing was, what are the differences in the models and the years and the history of them? Well, the models that came out from 97, the first to 99, and these were from the Yako factory in China. Taiwanese supervised but made in China. These guitars were body, full size Strat bodies, like the SE that I have. So it's basically the SE uh, with a moniker of Affinity on it. Electronics were essentially the same. But one of the things, and then going through until 2005, so they did some, in 2001, there was a change. Um, the previous ones were all Agathis bodies. Starting from June of 2001, the American made models, they started producing them in Alder. So they gave them Alder bodies. This Alder was from the Pacific Northwest. The Yako factory was sourcing this from the Pacific Northwest. So you had Pacific Northwest outer. You had what, from what I could track down and what's been rumored or what's been said, is that the necks on these guitars from this period, from roughly '97 till 2005, were mostly reclaimed. The Chinese ones, not the Indonesian ones. The Chinese ones were made from reclaimed maple, and of course rosewood. Now, that being said, Cat's Music Journey. Welcome, sir. How you doing? Oh, I already said welcome. Sorry, sorry, guys, getting ahead of myself. That's my purple Strat, '99 Squire Classic IRC, the last one before the Affinity full size. Yes, sir. Yeah. So from '97 until '99, 2000 ish, they were full size, like Cat's asked. And it is rumored that the necks again on these were reclaimed maple, rosewood fret, a slab rosewood fretboard. Now, that all being said, that's your research. So you say to yourself, okay, if I want to get one of these, I can get an outer body. Wow, that's what they're using on USA models with reclaimed maple neck and a rosewood fretboard. That sounds pretty good. The nut on these are about 40 millimeters, so it's thin at the nut. But that being said, also with these necks, they're full. They're pretty chunky necks, so they're more than, it's a little thinner at the nut than the 42 to 43 millimeters you would find on a standard Strat. However, the chunkier necks more than make up for that. Now, I put all of that out there before I bring it forward and I show it to you. So here it is. So this is that 2001 uh, Squire Affinity, made in China, that I restored. It used to be Alpine white, and now it has definitely changed colors. And we're going to talk about that. And these are the necks that I'm talking about. I want you to take a look at that neck. Yeah, that shows pretty good. That's good. Just look at that neck. Now, first of all, I want you to note that there's no skunk stripe on the neck of this guitar. The modern affinities, after 2005 or so, started having skunk stripe. These are solid maple necks. Solid maple necks. Very beefy, chunky neck. A little thinner up here again at the nut, but all in all, a really chunky neck. Solid maple. Um, uh, and so I went through the process of restoring this guitar. Um, nothing rare, nothing rare. Um, I knew that it had, you had two choices in 2001: agathis, like they used to use, or alder, or agathis, depending upon where it was shipped off to. But knowing these things, I said, wow, that sounds like the combination for a really, really nice. And it's, you get a quality guitar with quality woods, for song. And for a little bit of work, you can have yourself a nice guitar. Nothing collectible, nothing rare, just a basic guitar that people tend to overlook because, again, they get caught in that beginner guitar mindset. Get caught in that beginner guitar mindset. Ben, hey, how you doing, sir? Welcome to the chat. And you have to break free of that and start doing your research and saying, okay, what is this guitar made out of? And maybe there's a difference with the older ones. They've been making these for decades now. What were those older ones like? And can I still get one of those? Those are the things you look at. Just a basic guitar that a lot of people would just overlook. Process took 3 years. I bought this guitar 3 years ago. I looked, and life got in the way, weather got in the way in regards to the paint job. If you guys remember that, work certainly got in the way. And I wanted to do it in nitro, so finish it in nitro. So that had a lot to do with it as well. So it took a minute. But that being said, I think that it turned out I think that, quite frankly, this is a gorgeous guitar. The paint job turned out beautiful. I was even able to source a Fender back plate for it, and these tuners are just absolutely really really nice. It's actually the most that I spent on the parts. I already had a lot of the gold appointments, but I spent most of the money for the parts for these locking tuners because they're just really really nice. So, oh, and we're not even going to talk about the pickups because I swapped the pickups, but we'll get into that in a moment. Um, Now, the original guitar had a typical poly finish on it, which is very durable, but also very thick, as you know. My SE has a poly finish, and I was okay with that. I'm okay with a poly finish. Believe me, I'm not that much of a snob. However, I did want to have, um, with this guitar, one that I could refinish in nitro, true nitro. So I spent 2 years. You guys can remember. I would show it to you every now and then. I'd say, "Hey guys, look what I did! I got this sanded up down. I got it all the way down to the wood, and I took filler, and I didn't use wood filler. I used epoxy to fill in those dents and those holes and all those nicks and scratches and things like that, and smooth those, and then sand those down, and just took my time with it, and got it all the way down to the alder. And then, of course, the painting process started and priming it. And as you know, I live in the Netherlands, and you need at least 3 days where the temperature is at least over, preferably between 15 to 23, top end 24°C. In order to do that work, I had a spray tent set up on my deck, and I was just waiting for those days because you can't have rain because you can't have the moisture in the air. Certainly not with that; it's just not going to work. And it can't be too hot either. And I got exactly 3 days uh, last summer that worked out, and I was able to go ahead and finish the paintwork on it. And it's the weather window that's the hardest part. And I really, I took my time with this paint job. I really, again, did all the filling, all the sanding, everything to get it. And also the fact that it's been 6 months since I did the painting. It's just been sitting in Fern's shop. It gave time for that nitro finish that I sprayed on this to cure. And it's just gorgeous now. It's just really just a gorgeous paint job. All those dents, the little small nicks, by the way, they're still there. Some of the stuff that I missed, like like here, there's a over here, there's a few small dents in the horn, like little tiny pinpricks. But other than that, it came out really nice. Um, taking your time, taking your time with your paint job is the biggest key to success, I'd have to say. I am really pleased with how that paint. And again, one of the things is it's very close to a color that Fender puts out on one of their Strat models, American Pro 2 models, but not quite it. This is a little bit more blue gray, more like I call Batman gray, blue gray, and it's just a lovely color, just really lovely. Cat's Music Journey. I remember you showing different color choices a while back. That's right. So I was saying, hey guys, what do you think? Should I do it this color or should I go this color? And boy, am I glad that you guys convinced me to go this direction. Because at the end of the day, with the gold hardware and everything, it just looks lovely. Matte, nice matte finish on it. I could buff it out. It would buff out to a nice shine. I started to do that a little bit here on the horn, just to see how it would look and it does buff out very nice. But I like the matte mostly, so I'm going to keep it that way for now. Anyway, yeah, so that's right. You guys helped me. You guys helped choose this color, by the way. So yay to you guys. Thank you for your input. Asking our guy if they'd seal a painting with nitro or poly. Yeah, I have to say that with wood, with exposed wood, like the neck, for example, I did the neck with my usual linseed oil. So, it didn't need much. And by the way, because it's a 25-year-old neck, look at that color. Look at that aging. That's not artificial like on a custom vibe. That's actually really legitimate, aging on this and a beautiful uh, neck, firm without me prompting. He said, "Hey, that's a really good neck on that," and it is. It's a really nice pleasure to play. So I do linseed on that, sealing the body itself in this kind of weather. Nitro just seemed like a good. I wanted a nitro finish guitar, and it does make a difference. I have to say, it feels a little bit different than it did when it had that poly on it. So it's lighter too. Like I saw that same color on an early 90s American Fender. Wasn't sure if it was also a refinish. No, I have to be honest with you. This color is a color that that I think they used to have. That's why I mentioned that as well. They have something now that's close to how it used to be this, but not quite this. And they did have this color at one point. Again, these are all DuPont car colors. These are car colors that they're basing these on. And I like that one. So it worked out. But yeah, I think you're right, Scott. I think you are correct. Matt will wear down shiny the parts when you play overtime. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is that I'm noticing that as my arm oils, you know, when you got your arm resting on it in that area, it's starting to shine up pretty good anyway. But I did buff it out with my beeswax that I use. So it's just lovely. And it just took time. It took time. So the first thing that I will say is that it's worth that time. It was worth the 3 years because even if I were to replace it, this guitar, nowadays the fretboard material on the Squire Affinities is Indian Laurel. The necks are maple, but they're not solid maple. They're certainly not, reclaimed maple like this with nice figuring in it. The bodies are made from Popular. This one is made from Outer. In all ways, the older Squire Affinities from this time period were superior guitars. They were made of the same materials that the American Strats were being made of. The only difference was thinner bodies and the thinner neck at the nut. And quite frankly, as an older player now, I can understand why Mike Rutherford from Genesis plays Squire Affinities because this is an even more comfortable guitar to play for me than the full size SE. So there's that. Sonic Gray is close, but not quite dark enough. Yeah, it's not quite this, It's not quite this. And there you can see, there it is. There's a little bit of, you can see what I mean by if there's a little thing that I missed that I didn't fill in, that paint just sucked in around it. You can see it a little bit there, but no biggie. But yeah, this color gray, it's what I call Batman gray. And with gold appointments, it pops. It would look good on a 70s Buick Riviera too. Yeah, no shit. It really would. Um, so there's that. Um, Simple, clean, and again, what I would consider to be a custom color. It's not a way out color. It's not something that is so psychedelic and so funky that it would turn most of the people, or 90% of the people, would like this color. As was pointed out, I do believe that and agree that this was a color at one point. Now the hardware. Uh, I had to source a true a fender gold plate for it to replace the fender plate, silver plate that was on the back. The hardware, like the bridge and the jack and things like that, I got those from Temu. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not even going to lie. I not not to say that the stuff on there is necessarily bad. However, what I have noticed, and this is something that you guys should know out there who have these Asian metric guitars, that Temu stuff tends to fit guitars, the Asian metric guitars, better than the American stuff. Or as a matter of fact, you can't find a bridge with the right block on it that fits in a Squire, like an Affinity like this, generally out there on the market, that they're hard to find. And that gets into sourcing, finding the parts that Scott was bringing up. That was difficult to find, but I found it on eventually. I was looking everywhere and I looked on Temu, and lo and behold, there it was. And it fits perfectly. Fits perfectly. Its quality is the same as the one that it replaced. Which means that it's not the best, bridge. However, it's not the worst. It's not the worst. It'll do the job. It'll do pig. It'll do. That'll do pig. That'll do. It'll do. But finding one that fits a Squire Affinity like that is a difficult chore. But I did find one, especially in gold. Metal you can find all day, but gold. The thing I spent the most money was on the tuners because a guitar like this, because it needed to perform, and to record with, needs to stay in tune. So I bought these tuners, and I have the. Let me look here. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, so these are called Sapphire locking tuners. Um, these are really, really nice, beautiful tuners, nice locking tuners. They they are great. This guitar with the old tuners, the biggest flaw on most of these Squires actually are the tuners. Um, Putting a good set of locking tuners on this thing has really, really made a big difference. And that was the biggest investment that I made, and that cost me 25 euros for a set of those. Most of the other parts, like I said. So in total on parts, so the guitar about 80 euros. Parts, I reckon I spent about 40 euros, so 120, and then so that's where we're at so far. So keep in mind again, brand new 259 to 289. So far, I'm at 120. The paint, I already had the primer and the nitro around anyway. The two additional cans of paint were additional 5.99, €5 99 each. So we'll just round it off to 12 euros on that. So we're at about 122 euros. I'm into this guitar at this point. So keep those numbers in mind as well. Because again, like I said, one of the dangers of doing a restoration or a mod is overspending, putting more in terms of parts and than you could replace the guitar with new. I think that's where a lot of people make their mistake. Catching up here in the chat. Will you be tempted to throw in the freezer to get it to crack? No, sir. No, no, no. I spent too much time getting that nitro finished. I spent 6 months. We let it sit in Fern's shop, which is stone basement, down in basement floor, consistent temperature shop, and it just cured it so well. I don't want to do anything. What I do like is that it makes it not look like a brand new guitar. It gives it's got a little bit of a patina to it. That is one thing that I do like. But it looks, other than that, it looks like a factory guitar color until you look really close. I used a Mexican strap bridge on mine. Yeah, I understand that you can use Mexican strap bridges on Squire full size stuff for this because it's 43. Remember, these are 40. So if you put a standard block in here, it would stick out at the bottom. You did great with the paint. I know how hard it is to get done from experience, Maddie says. Oh yeah, Maddie. I'm just I'm so shocked on how it came out. It just especially because here this is the hard part where it could be too thick or it be too thin. You can get burned through in that area, and the corners are your death curves. And the fact that I got it on evenly, and even and up to the 8 12 coats of nitro on this thing, four, then sand, let it dry. No, four, let it dry, then sand, four, let it dry, then sand, and then finish it like that with the nitro. And now it's not a poly guitar; it's a nitro guitar. There is a little bit of lightness to it, and I think it does breathe, I guess, a little bit more if we can use that hippie language. Um, I decided gold hardware because I thought it contrasted well with the matte gray, and so we're at 122 bucks on this. The thing that really made a difference, the thing that really, really, really made a difference was the fact that Fern gave me a set of pickups, and I didn't really question them too much. I knew they came an American Strat. I just didn't know what they were. Well, it turns out that these are the Tex-Mex pickups. So we took out those the original, which I still have in the bag. We took out those ceramic pickups and we put it in, and Fern gave me a free set because one of his clients was putting in a set of Lollers, and he didn't want these anymore. He didn't want these Tex-Mex pickups. So he gave him the Fern, and I got them. And I got to be honest with you guys. You could say that the difference between these pickups and the original ceramic pickups, which I liked, by the way, I like those pickups. I stood by those, and we did A, B, and C on those once. But these pickups sounds really, really good, really good, especially through my rig. These Tex-Mex pickups over here in Europe, for some reason, I don't know why, but these Tex-Mex pickups are kind of expensive. They're 140 euros. I was surprised when I was researching and to talk about this tonight that he gave me a set of 140 euros over here. Apparently, in the States, you can get them secondhand for about 60 to $80. They're new around 100, something like that. But over here, they're 140 € pickups. And let me tell you, let me let me say that they, I have no desire, any thoughts, needs, or wants. They work well with the. We changed the pots. Well, we had changed pots anyway, but they work well with new pots. Um, and I've got nothing to say. I got them for free, and they are great sounding pickups. A lot of people say they're too hot, but or too brittle or something like that. I didn't find that at all. They work well with this guitar. I have 5 Strats. Hey, J Trim, how you doing? Welcome to the chat, sir. By the way, if I hadn't said so already, 2 of them are Squires. I got 49 bucks each. The upgrades were fairly inexpensive at that price. Again, yeah, if you can get into it, the lowest price that you can get into your mod project, the better off you are down the line, and the more room you'll have with your parts. I got into this for 80 bucks for 2001 American, shipped, not produced, but shipped to the States. These were the outer body ones, uh, and 88 bucks shipped. And from there, knowing that 259 to 289 was the replacement cost on this guitar. That was my range on my that was my ceiling on how much I would spend. Since Fern gave me free pickups and they're really nice, that has kept my price down. And he charged me, a much discounted fee than he would charge anybody else to do the finishing work. He even reset the neck as well, adjusted the pickups, put them in, did the wiring, everything like that. I'm in total 222 euros, approximately, into this guitar. So then I have to ask myself, for 222 euros, can I buy a Squire Affinity that's as nice as this one? Outer body, reclaimed maple neck. That means it's got to be from the late 90s to early 2000s. Uh, Tex-Mex pickups, replaced caps. Do you understand what I'm saying? Replaced, locking tuners. And the answer, of course, is no. And and so you have a guitar that's it's a Strat, and it's made by Fender, for God's sake. So it's a Fender Strat. You got all the components that everybody says makes up a Fender Strat: outer body, maple neck, slab, rosewood fretboard. Hmm. Fender pickups. These are Fender Tex-Mex. These are Fender pickups. Every component on this thing is a Fender component. That back plate on the back is a counterfeit, but yeah, we'll let that one fly. That I got off of Temu. But other than that, you think about that, 220 bucks, and you've got yourself a primo Strat. I mean, this sounds like a Strat. It sounds, plays, and feels like. And if you get a little bit of extra gumption, you can strip it down and repaint it yourself. 220 bucks, 22 bucks. Awesome pickups, Kat says. I have them in another Strat. Very versatile. I like. Yeah, I ran them 6 ways a Sunday through my board, and through a bunch of different amps, and just came to the conclusion that they rock. They're awesome. It's the thing about these pickups is the middle pickup is reverse wound and reverse polarity. Um, so in the four position, you're not going to get that four position sound because of that. It's an interesting sound, but I didn't really. I always rode, the one, the three, or the five position on these guitars. That was it. But they are great pickups. They're great pickups. Fur was explained to me. Well, the middle pickup is overwound and it's reverse polarity. I was like, or something like reverse wound, and reverse polarity. And I'm looking at the guitar. I'm like, wow, this shit looks great, and I'm not really paying attention to them. But when I did the research into these Tex-Mex pickups, staggered poles, and that other feature. So they're nice. I like them. I feel no need, nor will I ever again change the pickups in this guitar. This guitar is done. It's finished. Great score with the pickups. That's great. Yeah, that was just the luck of time. This one is of similar color. Let us take a look over here. I can do this live. I would dare say that is more, yeah, depending upon how he holds it in the light. Yeah. It's pretty close. It's fairly close. A little bit more green. Mine has a little bit more blue in it. So yeah. Wow. Good find there, Scott. It's hard to compare now because it's basically a custom shop spec. Yeah. I agree. But if you get into one of these, you can do this kind of work and you can still stay under the replacement cost of buying one new. And on top of that, these are far superior guitars in terms of the overall construction than the newer ones are. Again, the newer ones do not have rosewood; they have Indian laurel. That skunk stripe on the back that people think is so cool, that's not really great. That's artificial, and or sometimes it's a plug, so you're not getting a solid piece of maple. Thing again, like I said, is do you like alder? Do you like agathis? Do you like popular? That depends upon you. But we do know that alder, especially particularly Pacific alder like this, is a great wood for a strap. So, and the new ones are made from popular. So, a couple of changes there that are different. Now, it's something to keep in mind. And that's why this is a case for upgrading cheap guitars. Because if you get in, because it's considered a budget or a beginner guitar, you can pick them up secondhand for a song. For a song, sometimes you can even give them away. And with a little bit of work and keeping your eye on your budget, you can come up with a guitar that I would gig on stage with this guitar. It is that tuned in and that tight and that solid. I will certainly record with this guitar should I find myself recording ever again. I will record with this guitar. This guitar is not a budget guitar. It's not a beginner guitar. It is something else. But it started out as a budget guitar. It is now, for the total cost of 200, we'll just round up to 225 euros, it has become an absolute killer guitar with a custom paint job. So there's that. In 14 to 18 weeks, Tomon will have a hot Tex Mex set for 80 euros. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the reason why the other dealers, like if you go over to, nah, not Dykeman. Anyway, I can't think. If you go to some of the dealers in the Netherlands, they're asking 140. They're asking 140. Um, like Dirk Witt. Dirk Witt, they're asking 140 for these. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. But it's because they're not available. And again, these things are made out of plastic, plastic bobbins, plastic parts and things like that. And the cost of plastic is going up. The accessibility of petroleum products is getting less, fewer and fewer. So the cost of these naturally are going to go up as well. The cost of pickups is another thing that will be going up in the next few months. Just a side note. I like these Alnico 5 magnets. A lot of character, a lot of punch to them. Why go through all this effort, some may ask, for a guitar like this? And that's a reasonable question as well. It's not a collector's piece, Mike, for God's sake. And financially, um, yeah, it's pretty sweet, but you get in for all the effort you put into it, for another 30 bucks with your budget, you could have bought one brand new. But that's kind of the point, because sometimes the value of a guitar isn't necessarily about the resale price or the ease of of purchase, I guess. It's about the connection that you build with it. I always talk about building a connection with an instrument. See, I know this guitar intimately. I took it apart. I stripped its body down. I rubbed it with hot oils. I repainted it. I did the wiring on it. I did the basic wiring, setting up, um, put tuners on, did all that good stuff. And I know it I know its flaws. I know its ups and downs. I know this guitar very well. I know where it needs a little bit of work at. I know where I went through the frets. And that's work. The next thing that I need to do. By the way, I love this. It's just smooth as butter. No jagged edges, nothing. This is like the Japanese ones. That's the other reason I like this neck, is because it feels like a Japanese neck from the 70s. But the next thing I'll do is a little bit of leveling, crowning on these frets, but they're good to go. They're fine. I know this guitar intimately, very well. I've built a connection with it. It means something to me. And, you know, that kind of connection means something. You know, Van Halen had such a connection with his Frankenstrat. I pointed that out before. We used that, beat that dead horse a few more times. Brian May with his guitar as well, because he and his dad worked on it, as the story goes. You build these, and even if you buy it off the shelf, you work on it a little bit. Jimmy Page is quite well known for working on his, his Les Pauls. My understanding, he sanded the shit out of the back of the neck of one of them, number two. But it's finding a way to, it's not just a project itself. As it turned out, I think that with what I have here, for what this represents in terms of its playability and its true value as an instrument, I think that punches above that 225 euros that it costs for me to make it. And you're certainly not going to be able to replace this, like I said, with one of the modern versions. And so I know this neck because I worked on it. It had a little bit of a divot right here that I filled in, and I will zoom in. I will let you guys look at it and see if you can even see where that divot was at, where it had knocked. And I had filled it in, smoothed it over. You can't even see that now. I can't even feel it. I can't even feel it. So I worked on it, spent some time working on this guitar, and it's a pleasure to play. And because I gravitate. It's new, it's fun, you know. The SC I put away, and this is the one that's out. I only keep one guitar out at a time. I've got two cats and two dogs, and I'm not young myself, so I keep one out at a time. But this is the one that's out right now. And when I look at it from across the room, I smile to myself. I say to myself, "Wow, between you and Fern, you guys really, really did a great job." Let me catch up here in the chats, guys. Sorry. Oh, here we go. I don't know what's going on here. My chat has frozen on me. Let me restore, guys. See where I'm at. There we go. Squire versus Fender. It's just badge engineering. Nobody cares what their Chevy Caprice is actually. Oh, yeah. Dig that. And I think a lot of people are starting to get hip to that. I think that's something that a lot of people are starting to realize that, this is for all intents and purposes, because Fender is making standards in Indonesia and Asia now. This is an Asian made Strat. Yeah, there are some differences. The thinner body, like I said, 40 millimeters, and thinner up here at the nut. But again, like I said, from a construction standpoint, from every standpoint, it's a Strat. It's a Fender. I'm not being bogus when I put the Fender badge on the back. There was a Fender badge on it when I got it in silver. It's laying around here somewhere. They're Fenders, and you got to look past that. You got to stop saying. I think a lot of people have stopped looking at it as being a Squire or a Fender, but they're looking at it all as just being a Fender. So there's that. Hold up, you kind of look like Kurt Hammett. Ooh. When he's drunk or when he's sober? Because he looks pretty tore up when he's tore up. Hey, guitar guy, how you doing, sir? Welcome to the chat. Welcome. Yo, uncle, what's up? Hey, how you doing, sir? Welcome to you guys. Is that a slab or veneer? That's a slab. So that's a slab It's not a veneer. That's a slab rosewood fretboard. Slab rosewood fretboard. Again, that's a feature. That's something that that's 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 a nice piece of rosewood on these. A beautiful piece. Again, a legitimate neck, a maple neck with a slab rosewood fretboard. You're not gonna get that these days. All the newer ones. So an older one might be worth looking at. Is the point of tonight. It might be worth, in this world where you can buy almost anything instantly, there's still something satisfying about building something slowly. I'm glad it took 3 years to put this together because the end result is fantastic. It's actually more than I dreamed. It looks better than I imagined. Fixing it, improving it, and putting your own personal stamp on it. I can't stress that enough. Um, and at the end of that process, you don't just have a guitar, you also have a story. This guitar has a story to it. It's not, oh, I ordered it on, eBay and it came and I unboxed it and, it smelled funny for the first few days. No, but that could be part of the story too. But this guitar now has a story to it. Well, it took me 3 years. I remember spending winter nights in my living room with my little portable workbench watching Netflix and just sanding the body by hand, guys, by hand, and making sure that I didn't screw up any of the curves. Make sure that I didn't sand, down too far. Got it down to the wood, and then meticulously, as you remember, I started filling in all those dents, all those cracks. There was a huge crack in this, in the hole. Somebody had over drilled the hole for the ground cable, and so I had to rebuild that hole using epoxy, smooth it over so that it looked, perfect. Even though it's going to be covered over by this plate, still taking the time to do those things. It just came out really nice. Going through the process, yeah, going through the process too. I mean, and if you're saying you're going through the process, and that's part of it too. Yeah, it's a joy going through the process. It's a joy going through the process, and then I can sit here and show it to you guys, and I can say, hey, now, now I will say one thing. I will say this, truth in discussion. Um, I think I wired the jack not great because there's a little bit of a short in the jack, so I'm gonna have to and I've run out of solder, so I'm gonna have to take this down to Fern. He's got some of the good solder, not the stuff that's banned here in the EU, but the good stuff, the lead stuff, and he'll check my soldering job on the jack and see why there's a short. It's a little bit of a buzz. That's why I didn't demo it. It's got a little bit of a buzz down there. Occasionally, it'll cut in. So there's a short in there. So little, but but other than that, that would that's a small little technical fart that can be fixed. Once that's done, this guitar is done, and it is. I would put this guitar up with anybody's American Strat at this point. People would say, well, the Squire is not the same thing as a Fender. Well, I'll tell you what, this one is. This one is outer body, maple neck, rosewood. Again, those are the woods that you've said, is a true Strat. That's what you guys on the forum say. And that's what this is. With Fender pickups in it. Those are Fender, made branded pickups. And it sounds like any American Strat at a fraction of the cost. And that's the other part that you look at is you could say to yourself, Well, I spent $225. I got a Strat. That sounds like a Strat. It sounds like any Strat that I would pull off the wall, standard. If you can get past, again, like I said, the dimensions of it are slightly different. But to be honest with you, I don't even really notice that thinner body. And because this neck is so chunky, it's quite a handful, this neck. I don't even really notice that thinner spacing. I have no problem with this neck. Um, so at a fraction of the cost, it would, even if you bought the Indonesian made standard, which I believe those are going for what, $6.99, something like that. You're still one third of the way there with this guitar, and frankly speaking, I think that this is a better than that guitar than that Indonesian standard for sure, sure. So these are the things that you start thinking about, and again, this is a great case for upgrading cheap guitars, cheap guitars. Cat's Music Journey says, I had a comment on one of my videos about the idea of objects gaining beauty and character through wear. Apparently, this is known in Japan as wabi sabi. Yes, that is correct. That is correct. You know, graceful aging. And you even can apply that to people as they get older in Japan, aging gracefully. And I think that one of the things that I strive for is that wabi sabi kind of mentality when I'm doing restorations. That I don't, I mean, this is a 25-year-old guitar. This guitar was made in 2000, September of 2001. And I don't want to, I didn't want to overly, this is the original plate, these are the original knobs. Um, I wanted to, the patina, I don't want it to look like a brand new guitar. I wanted to have, but I didn't want to have it look like, somebody had dragged it behind their Ford F1 either. I want it because this is a natural patina to the neck, and it wouldn't match a brand new body. In other words, even with this matte decision, it's just to give it an overall appearance of that wabi sabi, that aging gracefully. Even in the restoration, that's something that I consider. So there's that. I think this is a great case. I think that I could submit a great case for upgrading a cheap guitar. Again, like I said, do your research. Do your research. Do your research. Okay, no. Huh. What? They were using reclaimed maple back then with these necks? Solid? What? They were using Pacific Northwest source alder for the bodies for these? That's interesting. That's do you know how much you pay for that now? Well, you guys do know. Just buy an American Standard. And by the way, even with the paint job, this is a pure nitro paint job. This is not that compound nitro that they use at Gibson and Fender and tell you it's a nitro finish. No, 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 no. That's a poly finish with a nitro component to it. This is a pure nitro finish, like they used to back in the day. The reason I had to paint it, by the way, because guys like Fern, most luthiers and most guys, they won't touch paint jobs because, we all know what happened to Rick Daring, uh, who made, Slash's guitar, Gibson copy. He died from breathing in too much nitro fumes. But it was worth it. Did I poison myself slightly? Yeah, maybe. But that's another thing me and this guitar have in common, something we share. I slightly poisoned myself in the making of it. Yeah, it's not something that everybody can do. Don't believe those YouTube videos, by the way, that also says that you can paint a guitar in one day. Your results will look as such. It takes time. But it's time well spent. It's time well spent. And you, again, you and that guitar developed interesting enough an affinity with each other. See how I did that? So that's just my thoughts on it. You know, how many of you have modded a guitar recently, or refinished one, or built something that started out as a basic instrument? Because I think there's really something special about taking a simple guitar and turn it into something that's uniquely yours. Again, I didn't go overboard. I didn't make this funky. I just was, I said, hey, why don't they do an affinity with gold hardware and a nice, one of those nice car DuPont colors. And I wanted to see how that looked. And as it turns out, it looks pretty damn nice. It looks pretty good. Um, and I will enjoy playing this guitar. This guitar now is ready. This guitar is good to go for another 25 years. That's the incredible thing too, is I've extended the life of this. Is no longer trash, or sitting underneath somebody's, bed somewhere. It's actually being used, which is what these things should be doing, being done to anyway. Why I object to new guitars and the overproduction of them, because there's so many older ones that with a little bit of TLC and not a lot of cash, you can turn into something really, 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 really nice, and you'd be completely happy. Um, so those are my thoughts, guys. Thoughts tonight. Um, I think that certainly it's something for you to consider. But again, do your research and know your budget. You know, I did. If I had gone above 259, 260, then I would start to sweat a little bit. I know that sounds ridiculous. Oh, that's not a lot of money. Well, but again, if you get into the habit of thinking like that and having that kind of budget consciousness, then you can avoid making the mistakes that a lot of people make in modding, certainly by overspending, putting more into the guitar than really makes sense. But if you can find a guitar that's got good bones, this is what I mean by good bones. I always talk about that. Good woods, you know, very well put together. The neck pocket on this guitar is tight. I've come across Fenders, Japanese Fenders, and American Fenders where the neck pocket, you guys have seen them, where the neck pocket isn't as tight as it is on this Chinese made Squire. And that makes a big difference when you're transferring that energy from the neck to the body to have as tight as a neck pocket as possible. Again, a little thing like that, but it's a big thing, a big thing. I think there's a special kind of joy you get from bringing things like this to light, to new life. I love that quite a lot. Yeah, I do too. I do too. And I think that's again the case for upgrading this is there's in 25 years from now somebody can my nephew or somebody could take this guitar, he can then upgrade it with whatever he wants to do it, and guaranteed it could go on for another 25 years from that point. As long as and it'll mean something. Anthony Thornhill, how you doing, sir? Good to have you here. Thank you so much. Yeah, just a thought, guys. And I really like this guitar. I really do like it. I really do like it. I think that it is a fine Stratocaster. Between the double fat in this one, as I told you before, I like to have two different tonality guitars when I'm recording. I can cover any kind of guitar tone that you could well imagine. I'm good to go. I particularly like the middle position on these Tex-Mex pickups. I like playing those old times, riffs like 7/7 93/11 and things like that. This has that sound. It really sound. I got it. got that sound, and it sounds great. And so, again, in praise of upgrading cheap guitars, the case for making an upgrade to a cheap guitar here I make tonight. I think that it's something that if you do your research, find a guitar that's got good bones, you can get in an entry price for 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks, and source your parts the best that you can. Uh, Hold on, guys. I got a cat that's just meowing. All right. Sorry, guys. Ellie wanted to come in. I think that if you can do that, if you can keep those in mind, you can come up with something really nice. I'm happy with this. I don't want another Strat. I'll be honest with you. I told you guys I was going to go over to Japan. I was looking for a, vintage Strat. I'm still looking for a neck for my SE because I would like to put a Tokai or a Greco neck on that guitar. To be frank, I like those necks because I like the way the frets feel on it, and I just like those older necks. But again, I'm not looking for another Strat. I'm covered. This again is enough Stratocaster, I think, for anybody. If you can, if you can get into it, I think you'd be happy. And that's supposedly a budget guitar. I don't get that. Started out this conversation saying that I didn't get that, and I still don't. You know, you guys want to know what budget guitar? Come back with me in time and check out some of those chord guitars that I was, especially those basses that I was learning on when I was, in my early teens. They were no bueno. They were not even in the same neighborhood ballpark of guitar and instrument like this one. And this is a budget guitar. Guys are you guys are living in great days. We live in great times. All right, guys. Thank you so much again for tuning in. If you want to support this channel, Scott was kind enough to put the link for my Bandcamp Asanoki page. Take a look at the merchandise we have over there for sale. And I will talk to you guys again on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that you have a good, safe week. I hope that we all are blessed. And anywhere that you can show a little bit of kindness this week, take a moment and do so. And it'll pay back to you tenfold. You guys take care. Bye bye.